Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forests that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good morning, S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal, coming to you pre-recorded, obviously, on a bright and early Monday morning. Not my best time, but it's the quietest time in my house, so it's the best time to do this. So this is a special presentation because we had Forest Moon training yesterday. Outstanding turnout. Loved it. A lot of questions, a lot of interaction. I always love class interaction. A lot of questions, a lot of answers, a lot of input. A lot of people in our group are out of state, out of country, and want to take our training. Well, I don't have a good enough video camera to actually record training. And the individual that's in a group that has an excellent camera works a lot and wasn't able to do it. So eventually we will have recorded training, video recorded training, and that'll be awesome. So the views and opinions of S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal do not reflect that of Spaced Out Radio or KTLK The Fringe FM, which is our we're a family of them now, and that's awesome. That brings in more people that need to get the message we bring out, and that's that the paranormal exists and is very real. and is very serious, which is, and we'll get to that a little more in depth. But it's we don't see the paranormal as entertainment like a lot of teams and groups out there do, and it's frustrating to say the least. That so many take it as, oh, we're going to go to a hot spot and make some money. That's not what this is about. It's not entertaining when you have someone that's being terrorized by a spirit, that's being abducted by aliens, not so much attacked by Bigfoot. You don't see that a whole lot. Bigfoot's intriguing, to say the least. And we'll get to that in this presentation. Now, if you're in the group and you have the PowerPoint, bring it up, because I will be going slide by slide. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're on slide 1, we're on slide 2, and then I'm going to go into a lot more detail. Because if you're just looking at the PowerPoint, the information's there, but if you were at the training yesterday, you got a lot more information than just what was on the PowerPoint, because I go into a lot more detail. So, and so we have a schedule up. I'll go into the schedule a lot more, but there's a lot of training that we're going to be doing that's not actually on the schedule yet. We're going to be going into, in fact, our medium, Sarah Camp, is going to actually be doing a class next spring time frame on how to cross over spirits and mediumship. We're going to be doing law enforcement and the paranormal, and government regulations and laws that might interfere with the paranormal or affect the paranormal and paranormal teams in general. And I'm going to bend some people the wrong way in that I do believe government regulation needs to be a little more involved, because you have too many fringe groups out there that don't take this serious. I mean, hell, face it, society in general doesn't even take this serious. There's 911 calls where people are calling 911 with a spirit problem. And what happens? What's law enforcement going to do, for one? For two, what do? They don't call in a paranormal team to go check it out and handle the situation. They call in the psychiatric unit. And that's going to be another class. I've got to find a good, qualified, and this is where you, our listeners, come in. If you're a psychiatrist that's open-minded to the paranormal, I need a presentation on what to look for with the psychiatric issues that may be psychiatric and not paranormal, or vice versa. How do we differentiate that? And I want a class on that. And if I had a psychiatrist or a crisis counselor to come and actually give that class, would be ideal. But those are some areas that we're looking at. Wilderness survival and first aid's not on the schedule yet. That's coming up. And what was the other one? There's another one. Anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there. But bringing up, so slide 1, what does FMP deal with? Actually, it's not slide 1. Correction. It's early morning. So what is Forest Moon Paranormal? And I'm going to read it verbatim, and then I'm going to talk about it. So Forest Moon Paranormal is a paranormal emergency response team that handles cases globally. We deal with all issues paranormal, from spirits and hauntings, non-earthly entities, UFOs and alien abduction, alien races, Bigfoot and other cryptids, and anything else of the strange and abnormal. We deal with cases using technology. We have 2 scientists, psychiatrists, and a plethora of experience in this field between our team. We have training in OSHA inspection to look for the mundane explanations, crisis counseling, MUFON field investigation, hazmat training, wilderness survival, FEMA training, and ordained clergy. So, for those that might be new listening, if you go to Facebook, look for Forest Moon Paranormal, join the group, and everything you need answers to is right there. If you don't find the answer in there, send me a message. And all my contact information is in this PowerPoint, and I'll throw that out here in the show as well. So yeah, and the next slide actually goes into the team, so I'm not going to cover who is in the team and what they do yet. But I see one of the problems in this field as you say paranormal, and everybody automatically jumps to ghosts, hauntings, uh, and that's so far from the actual field because UFOs, alien abduction, and alien races, Bigfoot, Dogman, other cryptids, those are all part of the paranormal. Anything that is not normal or is not seen in science or society as normal is paranormal. And again, it gets frustrating. Now, a little bit of my background. I've got 19 and a half years Army, 4 combat tours. Had most of my paranormal experiences in the Army, just pretty much because half my life was in the military. But within the military, so I was a combat medic. I was also a truck mechanic. I had both MOSs. Um, Within that military time, I was OSHA inspection certified as a safety NCO. Being maintenance, I also had hazmat training. I have crisis counseling training for being a medic. The wilderness survival, that just goes without saying. You're trained in survival, just being in the military. FEMA training, I've got probably about 20 to 30 different classes from FEMA that I've done. I've been in search and rescue. I've been fire department for a minute. I'm also ordained pagan clergy. So that's where, and so MUFON field investigation. I was with MUFON back in the 90s. Within this team, obviously I'm the case manager, the triage specialist, as well as I've been in the UFO and abduction field for over 20 years. So that's where I come from. And when it comes to spirits, I've had my fair share of spirit interaction. So moving along, slide 2, the team. And the team is not all inclusive. We don't have everybody on the team listed yet because we're always growing. And that's where the GPI comes in. GPI is a global paranormal initiative, and we are looking for other teams in other areas to do boots on ground. In, say, Alabama, in Scotland, we have India fairly well covered. My goal is to get 2 teams per state and 2 teams per country. That's not even, we need more than that, but that's a good start. And that way you have a case, we get a case that comes in that's in Ohio. I can contact that particular team that I trust that has the same viewpoint we do, and they will work in tandem with our astral team. And we'll get to the astral team here in a minute. So case management triage specialist is myself and Corey Ruiz. He's here in Concord as well. He's one of my lead investigators. Administration is Izzy Cooper. That's my mate. She does all my forms, makes all my paperwork pretty. She does all the legal documentation, all that kind of stuff. Astral Combat Team Lead is Tony Loki LaCroix. He's out of Indiana. Let's talk about the Astral team for a minute. So Astral, for someone that doesn't really know what Astral is, and we get licked on Eliza woohoo group, as Dave Scott and Space Art Radio calls it. And you got some side of the paranormal that, everything's got to be science based. No, it doesn't. You call everything science. You look at everything the paranormal science, you're not going to get anywhere. Because that's not the answer. You have to have a balance. You have to have a medium. You have to have equipment and science. That's how you balance the field. So now astral. If you've ever had an out-of-body experience, you wake up and you find yourself looking down at your body and you're on the ceiling, that is oftentimes a precursor for astral travel or astral projection. Now, back in 2012 is when we actually started the astral team. Tony has been astraling since he was a child. And if you're familiar with S4, we are live every Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time. And what we're going to be doing is, and we started last week, or this month actually, is actually having the Forest Moon Paranormal team on the last Saturday of the month. And we started already. And we had the astral team on. So basically, astral travel is very similar to you're traveling in another dimension. You can be, I can have the team sitting right here in my living room. I don't see them. I can feel them, but they're here. They can sit here and call me on the phone and describe my entire house to me. That's how astral works. So having an astral team, it takes the distance out of it because they look at a picture, they lock on the client, and they are there instantaneously. Whether it's Scotland, Hawaii, anywhere in North America, India, it doesn't really matter where it's at. They're there. The other thing with astral, you can see and interact with spirits, aliens, it doesn't matter, and remove them. Pass over spirits, combat aliens, whatnot. We are an astral combat team, which is why we can actually now stop alien abductions. And that's new as of this year. And we'll get to abductions. It's towards the end of this presentation. This is a basic Paranormal 101 presentation. This class is a requirement for anyone boots on ground in our team here. This one and November 12th is our paranormal protection. And we'll go over stones, herbs, grounding and shielding, and why you need protection. And these two classes are a requirement if you're going to be on cases. And the rest of it, that's hands-on common knowledge. We can teach you as we go with the rest of the stuff. But this class here and the next class are requirements to be able to be on the team. So we have two scientists on the team. Eric Markham is a biological scientist. He's been in the science field for over 20 years. He's out of North Carolina. We get evidence, we ship it to him. He analyzes it in his lab. Karen Crowley-Penoza is our meteorological atmospheric science. She's worked for NASA. She's worked in Boeing. Been in that field for over 20 years. And she's here local. She's a boots-on-ground scientist. Tyler Allen Gaffney is our Bigfoot specialist. He's here local. He's Native American. Knows all the native lore on Bigfoot. Interacts with Bigfoot. Goes up to the mountains and follows them around. He's got their trust. So the UFO alien specialist side, that's myself. I've been in that field since 1994. Helped hundreds of abductees over the years. Seen 3 UFOs of my own. As far as Bigfoot, I've also heard the Bigfoot tree knocks right here in my own mountains, here in Concrete, Washington. We now also have a photo video analyst, Josh Hamilton. He's actually getting a Bachelor of Science in the media sciences. I can give him a picture or video, he can pick it apart and figure out if it's CGI, Photoshop, if it's a fake or if it's a valid. That's important for any team. Our medium is Sarah Camp. We've actually vetted her, and she's going to talk on, she's actually going to be on the show here in December, talking about how to vet a medium. Everybody thinks they're a medium. Everybody thinks they're psychic. Are they? We're going to learn how to figure that out. And it's really cool when you can actually see the 3 teams work together. As we've had cases where the medium can correlate what the astral team's saying, and we can actually see it in action with an EMF meter, for example. And we've done that. Now, we do work with 3. I don't know why, but I don't have bumps listed on here. But Jason Loop out of Spirit Ropers in Mount Vernon, Washington, we work with. I can call on his team if we have an emergency situation, and they'll bring in equipment and verify what is or is not there. We have Mike Moore out of the Haunted Crew of Canada, and they're only 45 minutes away. You can get his team here. And then we have Bumps Paranormal out of Bellingham. Those are the only 3 teams here locally that we work with. Anyone else? No. We have wishy-washy teams here locally that we have nothing to do with. They're nothing but entertainment. Um, you start calling yourself a professional team and you're charging money for a quote-unquote ghost walk or a haunted investigation. You're not teaching anything for protection. You're actually setting the public up for a possible attachment, a possible dangerous situation that our team gets to clean up. I don't endorse that, and it's to me it's disturbing. So there are teams here that we do not endorse, never will. The only three teams, like I said, is Spirit Ropers, Haunted Crew of Canada, and Bumps. That's it. White Noise we also endorse, but they're farther south. And if you want to get into that, the South Sound Paranormal we also endorse, but they're way down past Tacoma. I am losing my voice. I did a lot of talking yesterday, so bear with me. So what constitutes paranormal emergency? We are an actual emergency response team. You can ask a lot of our clients. Now, what constitutes a paranormal emergency? So we do triage. Now, triage is French for sorting. And being in the medical field as a combat medic, I did triage on casualties. And that's, you basically put your least injured in a lower category because they're not going to die. Now, if they, it's hard to explain. If they're on death's door, we're going to put them also in a lower category because if we can save them, then they're going to be in a higher category. So I've set this up the same way with the paranormal. And you're looking at the list, and just because it's at the top does not mean it's going to be. Example: any case involving children or pregnant women is at the top. Now, if we get an abduction case and say an alien interaction case, and all of a sudden a child case comes in, the child case will come to the top. We're going to stop what we're doing and go to the child case. So any case involving children or pregnant women. Why pregnant women? So if you're pregnant and you're already under stress for being pregnant, you bring in a paranormal issue that can cause problems with a pregnancy. So pregnant women, yeah, that is a top priority. Also, there are entities and non-earthbound entities that have been known to take souls. Soul takers, some call them, or even demons can take souls. And so you have to be careful with an unborn child and entities that might have an agenda. So that's why pregnant women. Second is any case of physical or psychological injury. You get pushed down the stairs by a spirit. You woke up getting scratched. You're terrified by what's going on. That's the second category. Any case involving UFO sightings or abduction. That's to me, abduction is right up there with the child cases. And again, back in the 90s until this year, all I could do for abductees was encourage them, let them know you're not alone, you're not going crazy. It really does happen. And that's the first healing step. And then you encourage him to do a dream journal. A dream journal is basically just a notebook by the bed, and you wake up, you put down the date, the time, the weather, and a description of the dream and any pictures you might have dreamt about. That's how conscious recall comes back with abductions. And I get asked, why the weather? Well, the weather, if you're asleep, and this is the weather, if it was raining or whatnot before you went to bed, that's what you're going to put down, not the weather in the dream. I got asked that yesterday. So Why the weather? Well, because if you're asleep and you hear a lightning storm, that can affect your dreams. Moon phases can affect your dreams. So I put down your moon phases as well. Any case involving alien interaction. So, you have contactees and you have abductees. A lot of times with a contactee, they have a wonderful experience. It's a positive alien experience. And I put alien channelers in that category as well. These are people that get fed messages from aliens, either telepathically or through symbolism, whatnot. So with the contactees, yeah, they have a wonderful experience, the Space Brothers and whatnot. And what I brought up yesterday was just a theory. There's a condition called Stockholm syndrome. I had to think about it for a second. Stockholm syndrome is when you're kidnapped, and some folks that are abducted or kidnapped by humans, by terrorist groups or whatnot, develop a bond with their captors, and they kind of switch sides. They take the side of the captor, and now the cops or the FBI or whoever's coming to rescue them becomes the bad guy because they've got a bond. That's called Stockholm syndrome. So, kind of wonder if some of the contactees you hear about don't have Stockholm syndrome from the aliens. They have a bond with the aliens and it makes them the good guy. Just a theory. Only a theory. No founding to it, just a theory. So contactees and abductees, generally speaking, have a terrifying experience. They're being taken against their will. They're being experimented on. There's 16 races that are known or documented to be abducting humans. And we go a lot into this with S4. In fact, we did an abduction show last weekend. So I'm not going to hit on it too much. There's actually a slide on the signs and symptoms of abduction as well in this presentation. So then you have any case involving Bigfoot or other cryptids. Those aren't emergency situations, just interesting. Any case of the unexplained. Missing 411 with David Paulides, that would be an example to me of any case of the unexplained. Next slide, slide 5, children of the paranormal. I threw that in there because if you have kids, these are things you want to look for. Communicate with your children, keep an open line of communication. If they tell you they got a spirit in the closet, check it out. If you don't, you tell them it's just their imagination, you're going to shut down eventually that communication with your child because why are they going to tell you if you just keep on telling them it's your imagination? Check it out. Pay attention to drawings, marks on the body, imaginary friends. Oftentimes it can be imagination. Don't get me wrong. It's not always paranormal. The first thing we look for is mundane. But pay attention to their drawings. If they're always drawing a monster, if they're waking up with unexplained bruises, kids are accident prone. I understand that. My kids are 5 and 6. They wake up with bruises. They wake up with scratches. We have rabbits and cats, chickens. They get scratches. If they wake up and they have unexplained bruising, that's what you want to look for. Imaginary friends, are they talking to them? You just never know. Imaginary friends are not always imaginary. So in art, kids love to draw. My kids love to draw. But in art, you watch for monsters. You watch for red eyes. Common sense. If it's only a red crayon available, it's probably why they got red eyes. But if they've got an assortment of colors, but they always draw the same thing with red eyes, pay attention to that. There's an alien race that's got red eyes. Some entities have red eyes. Pay attention to red eyes. Watch for sudden fear of a specific room in the house, a particular animal, and ask why. Pay attention to dreams. So if your kid's 2 to 3 years old, they've been fine in their room, everything's hunky-dory, and all of a sudden they are terrified of their room. Pay attention to that. Dreams is with dreams are fickle, and that you know, if you watched a horror movie or if they watched a cartoon with a witch before they went to bed, they could have bad dreams on that. So you know, again, it's always common sense. Voices. Do you hear them talking to someone? And again, is it their imaginary friend? Pay attention to it. So, do your kids know who Aunt Zelda is in a picture? And you've never talked about Aunt Zelda. And ask them about that. And if they say Aunt Zelda's been talking to them, that's something you might want to pay attention to. Along with other signs, if you smell a strange perfume, if you know, hear door knocks, and we're going to get to that later on too. Are they familiar with the location without having been there? That can actually go with, you know, past life. Poltergeist cases are common with prepubescent kids, energy release. They don't know they're doing it. So poltergeist actually means noisy ghost. It's German. And a lot of times you'll find with poltergeist cases that, and it's in our uh, pre-investigative questionnaire actually is one of the questions. Is there prepubescent children in the house? With poltergeist cases, you will find that it's energy, excessive energy from prepubescent kids. You teach them how to ground and you cleanse the area. You can usually stop a poltergeist. Not always. It's sometimes it can be a spirit, and it can be a pissed off spirit. But oftentimes you ask about prepubescent kids. Do your kids talk about lights in the sky or owls, deer, etc.? We will get to that a little more in depth in general with the alien abduction section. Um, the owls and the deer. A lot of times you'll find abductees that are terrified of the owls and deer since childhood because, well, aliens have what's called screen memory when they abduct, but they can't. And you'll think you're following a deer around or a rabbit around because that's the screen masking that they're using, but they can't hide the eyes. So you'll find that you're scared of big eyes. So next slide. What do we deal with? What does FMP deal with? Okay, you know what? Before we go to the next slide, I want to explain something. A lot of teams don't do training, and to me, you know, being military, training is important. We train all the time in the military. If you don't train, you get lax, which could put your client and your team in danger. Testing equipment, I don't see a need to go to hotspots for a quote unquote investigation because a hotspot's already been proven haunted. Why the hell are you going to go there? Other than to get that cool EVP and sweet picture. Really? What's the reason? What's the need? There is none. Which is what makes us different. That we're an emergency response team. We go to clients that are terrified, that need the help. We're not there to prove the existence per se. We're there to clear it. We're there to handle the situation. So we will be doing a field training at Fort Casey. That's probably going to be in the spring when it's a little bit warmer because we're actually getting into the cooler season. And that's simply to take our new people out and show them, look, the EMF meter really does work. Look, you got a picture. Cool. Now you know that something's there. And I don't know, this field frustrates me to no end. But training keeps you on your toes. And you know, this is just the first of many trainings we'll be doing because a lot of these topics will cover an entire training session. You can't cover everything in the UFO field in this format. It'll take a whole day. Bigfoot, same thing. And some of these topics need to be hit. They really do. We're actually going to do, you know, evidence collection in a sterile format. That's actually a protocol that was designed by our own scientist. So you know it's, you know, scientific. It's to run into a location with an EMF meter and get a picture. That's not science, and too many paranormal teams out there are claiming to be doing this in the name of science, and it's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. That's not science. So, having a scientist on the team actually is a major benefit. Anyway, next slide is what does FFP deal with? And this is a lot of nuts and bolts of what we do. Humans that have passed over that have no idea they've died. That's common. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to be a spoiler, but watch the movie The Others. Perfect example. And very, very factual. A lot of times you walk in and that spirit doesn't even know they've passed. So you're they're not intruding on your space. You're actually intruding on theirs, and that's common. What makes a spirit stuck? Oftentimes, it's a violent death. They died before their time. They died before they're supposed to. My question would be, and I'm really not sure about the suicide side, whether they're stuck or if they can pass, if they committed suicide. That's one of the variables that we don't know. If anyone tells you they do know for a fact, well, unless you're a medium and you've talked to a few and they all say the same thing, then that's a hard one to show. But car wrecks, murders, crimes, that kind of thing, a lot of times they're stuck and they need to be helped over the veil. Now, does a spirit always need to be passed over? No, they don't. If they're not causing problems, why are you going to pass them over if they don't want to go? We have a spirit here in Concrete. He's 22 years old, died in the 1900s. Having the time of his life. Why are we going to make him go over? He's not doing anything wrong. He's not causing any issues. In fact, he's being quite protective. Spirits are protective. They can be. Whether they were a loved one that's here with you or a stranger, they can be protective. I had a staff sergeant that when I was a private in Germany, that his home was protected. It was empty because he was in Germany, obviously, and in the military. And he told me one day, if anyone breaks into my house, they'll be pushed out because I have a spirit there that as long as I don't rearrange my furniture, he's fine. But if you don't belong there, you're gone. So humans that have died of a traumatic or violent death, those are the ones that are usually stuck. Non-human entities. Now, that's where you kind of get into a gray area because there's a lot of classifications of non-human entities, demons being one. Demons are very rare. You won't find near as many demons as what TV makes it out to be. If you look at paranormal TV, everything's a demon. No, it's not. Spirits can scratch you. Spirits can push you. Spirits can get aggressive. Does not mean it's a demon. Demons get blamed for everything. And then that's where religion comes into it. There's religions out there that everything's a damn demon. No, not really. Growing up, I was even told aliens are demons. No, they're not. Aliens are aliens. Fairies are elementals. That's a whole nother realm. Fairies can be mischievous. Fairies can be a pain. Not all of them are bad. You have good, you have bad. You have good with bad, good and bad with everything. Elementals, those are guardians. Those are protectors of the elements, whether it's fire, earth, air, water. They are protectors. You've got earth elementals, very strong, very very spirit oriented, very powerful. You don't want to piss them off. If you do, you try to appease them. You got demons or other malevolent entity types. Those are astral team combat's over. They send them back where they came from. Now, thought forms. Not many people think of thought forms. Slenderman, perfect example of a thought form. Slenderman, for those that aren't familiar, was created by a website back in the 1990s. I can't remember the exact name of the group that made Slenderman. Made as a fictional character. But so many people, now if you've ever heard of global consciousness, That's where a whole group of people put thoughts into one thing, and you can actually make it living. So Slender Man was a pretty horrific uh, being, and so many people were terrified by him that they essentially gave him the energy to become a created being, essentially. And then 3 years ago, if you follow the news, you heard about three little girls that stabbed another girl and almost killed her. I think she lived. But when they went to court, when they told the cops when they were being interviewed that it was Slender Man that made them do it. And that's an example of a thought form. Very common, more common than you think. Then you have UFO sightings, helping alien abductees cope through dream journaling, peer support counseling, and just knowing they're not alone. And as of this year, we're stopping them via astral assistance. Bigfoot reports, setting up gifting sites. We'll get to that, but Bigfoot reports, that's another thing we deal with. Only real cryptid that I'm aware of in our, direct area. Now we're global, so we do, but we don't get reports of Dogman and some of the other cryptids that are out there. So next, ghosts versus apparitions. These are just some of the definitions that I threw out there. Supernatural, anything that cannot be explained by any known means or force of nature. Paranormal is something beyond the range of normal human experience or scientific explanation. The umbrella, and you say paranormal, and a lot of teams is, oh yeah, ghosts. We're ghost hunters. Okay, well that's just a very small slice of the pie of the paranormal. So within the paranormal realm, you've got UFOs, alien abduction, Bigfoot, other cryptids, as well as spirits, on the haunting side. To me, personally, a ghost and a spirit is the same thing. Some will give you the definition that I'm trying to make sure I get it right, but a ghost is what's stuck here, and it becomes a spirit once it's crossed over. Personally, I think they're the same thing. Does a ghost or spirit have to be crossed over? We already talked about that. Apparition is the visual appearance of any spirit phenomena. Common. We're going to jump down to orbs. Differentiate between dust and other. Some are spirits, fairies, dragons, elementals, aliens, and messengers. I look at pictures of orbs, and you can tell the difference between dust and other. Other usually is a different color. Other usually is moving on its own accord, its own power, and zigzags, goes back and forth. Some of them split into two. With orbs, you have to look at it carefully because it might be an insect, might be a bug. These are things you look for. Larva. That's kind of it's not new, but it's kind of a new phenomenon. And these are parasites. They look like worms. You can see them through the astral. They feed off energy, often found in the chakra areas, and can be felt as attachments. So attachments, we'll get into. Attachments are spirits or entities that latch on to unsuspecting humans, and oftentimes investigators that have no protection. Often, but not always, found below the back of the neck or on the back. Signs include a change of personality, pain in the area, energy drain, and depression. Too many teams out there, I don't need protection. Actually, you do. Because if you're not careful, you'll be followed home by a spirit, or you'll get an attachment. So what constitutes a haunting? Next slide. Some of the signs of a haunting is door knocks, footsteps. If you wake up scratched, wake up with a scratch. But here's the thing you got to look at. You have a cat. You have kids sleeping in your bed. Scratches aren't always paranormal. Voices or whispers. Objects moving. Doors or cabinets opening. Smells of perfume or cigarette smoke. You don't have anyone smoking in the house, and you have cigarette smoke in your house. Animal reactions. Pay attention to the animals. Cats and dogs can see in the fourth dimension. They see what you don't see. Feeling of being watched, goosebumps, being pushed, hair pulled, weight on your chest while sleeping, electrical anomalies, lights that turn off and on their own, TVs that come on their own, drop or raise in the temperature, and shadows. Now, what else can it be? So if you have the things we look for in the mundane, if you have a cabinet door that opens up on its own, is there a heater vent by it? Has the house shifted over time and now your cabinet is crooked? Is the house settling? You have old pipes that are knocking. You have old wiring that's causing electrical problems. And that's where your EMF meter will come in handy with high energy readings, that kind of thing. Sleep paralysis. So sometimes your mind basically wakes up before your body can move, and this is sleep paralysis. Happens in abduction. Sometimes it can be abduction. Sometimes it can also be spirits, because you actually can have hallucinations of sleep paralysis. You'll see an entity. Environmental mold, we'll actually get to a little more in depth, but if you have black mold, that can cause health issues as well as hallucinations. And then you have the good old psychiatric conditions. And we do encounter that occasionally, and that's why that needs to be addressed. So, door knocks, that can be fairies, that can be spirits. Footsteps is kind of a hard one to disprove, unless somebody's in the house and you just didn't know it. Somebody's home. Voices or whispers. Was the radio turned on, but it was real low. And then, I always like to check the earthquake sites. We have an earthquake, and that's why objects are moving. Smells of perfume. Is it familiar? Because it might be Aunt Gertrude visiting you. Pay attention to smells. We covered animal reactions. Feelings of being watched, that can be abduction as well. It can be abduction or spirit. Goosebumps. Pay attention to that, because goosebumps, if a spirit's around, you can pick up goosebumps. And I know I already went over this, but there's more detail that I want to throw at a couple of them. Electrical anomalies. You know what? Pay attention to the age of your TV, because a lot of the older TVs from the 70s and 80s that still have the tubes were known to come on their own. So it doesn't necessarily mean paranormal. So a drop or a raise in temperature. So scientifically, when a spirit is materializing and it has the energy to pull the molecules around it, it will cause a drop. That's where your cold spot comes from. So I have a digital thermometer that gives a dual readout. It's a laser. I shoot it across the room. It'll tell me if there's a fluctuation in temperature, from one end of the room to the next. And that's what we watch for. And that's also when you hear about a cold spot, somebody's walking through a room and they feel a cold spot. But is there an air conditioner vent around the area? Is there a heater duct around the area? These are things you watch for. Shadows can be a multiple of things. In the magical world, being pagan, you have some pagans that will send. They're not spirits or entities. They can be an energy, and they're spies. They're benevolent. They're not bad, but they're bad in the sense that it's violating your privacy. But they're all they are is spies for whatever reason the individual sent them. There's also an alien race called the Rogue, and these are shadows that have a cape and a hat, a top hat. The cape and the hat are actually cloaking devices. That's what makes them a shadow. Very violent, very aggressive race. One that if you see that shadow, get the hell out of the area. The next slide, things to look at in an investigation. So we have a very extensive pre-investigative questionnaire. And we're going to get to that here momentarily. So I'm going to go over a pre-investigative questionnaire, and the top of the form, you can actually look at this form in our library, but you have your normal contact info. Now, part 1 is site information. The address of the site to be investigated. That's a given. How many occupants on the site? Now, why is that important? Well, when our astral team goes in, if they know that there's 3 people in the home right now, but they detect 4 energy signatures, well, that could be an issue. Either there's an unwanted guest in the home that these clients aren't aware of, or it could be a spirit. So the number of people on site when we investigate is important on that regard. What does each occupant do for a living? That's important in looking at mundane. If our client is a carpenter or an electrician, well, that kind of rules out, possible carpentry or electrical issues. If they have a degree and they have a lot more to lose coming out asking for investigation or saying they're having paranormal issues. Because if they have a degree and they have a pretty high profile job, they can be looked down on for claiming paranormal. That's sad. That's the sad truth. So what are the occupants' religious beliefs? That plays a big role because, some religions, everything's a demon. So that's going to show a little bit of a sway in what they believe is going on based on that. Amount of time at the site. So what we look for with that, how long have you lived here? Did you have issues in your prior residence that may have followed you from that residence to your current? Did you bring anything new into the home? A new dresser that you got in an antique shop that might have an attachment to it? Things of that nature. Amount of time at the site. When did the activity start? The age of the site. How old's the house? What's happened there? Any disasters? Then you start looking at the property. How old's the property? Look at the history of the area. Were there any battlegrounds? Was there a house built there before this one was built? And did that one burn down? Did somebody die in the house? Is the property a prior Native American, was it owned by Native Americans prior? How many previous owners? How many previous owners before you moved in, and did any of them die in the residence? Was there any kind of, disaster? History of the site, same thing. Any tragedies, deaths, previous complaints? Did anybody complain about having paranormal activity in that home before you moved in? A little harder to find unless you maybe contact a local paranormal team that's investigated there before that person moved in. How many rooms are at the site? You list each room and what floor it's on. Then you identify which room has the most activity. Has the site been blessed? If it's been blessed, by who? By what religion? By what belief system? And you go from there. Has there been any recent remodeling? So this is important because closets you never touch. And with remodeling, is the spirit that's there a prior occupant? They might be upset because of the remodeling that was done, and they're going to be more active. Part 2 is client information, and this is do all occupants agree that what is happening is paranormal or supernatural? Now, a lot of times the answer is no. The husband or the wife, one of them might be seeing stuff, the other one's not. If both of them are seeing it, that brings in a lot more credence. The more witnesses you have to the events that are happening, it kind of takes a psychiatric issue out of the equation. Do you have any desire to keep phenomena from leaving? Some people don't. Some people just want to know who's there or what's there. If it's, not going to cause harm, it can stay. You'd be surprised how many times we've only had to mediate. Once the spirit understands they've crossed over and that they're scaring the dog and the kids, they don't have to move. If the client says, they're fine, they just need to stop walking so hard or scaring the dog and the kids, then there's a reason they have to move or be passed over. So have you done any type of investigating on your own? That could stir things up. If you're walking around with an EVP, a recording device and trying to catch an EVP, you could be opening up doorways. Because white noise, for example, can open up channels. It can open up doorways that bring stuff in. Same with mirrors that face each other. The old style, 3-window panel mirrors that are left facing each other, that can open up a door. And a lot of stuff can come through. What would you like to see from this investigation? That's important in that, well, do you want it to leave or do you just want to know what's there? And I see I'm getting off track here. Who's witnessed these events and that do not live in the home? Do you have guests that have come over? So I'm just going to go for these questions because I'm off track here. I'm not in the right order, but you'll get the idea of what we look for when we do an investigation to come in and clear. So are any of the occupants on medication? That's important because doctors don't talk to each other. So you have 3 different doctors that are giving 3 different sets of medication, and sometimes the mixture of medication can cause hallucinations. So you kind of look at that. What medications are you on and for what? Are you on psychiatric meds? Then you might be hallucinating. Just a thought. If you're on high blood pressure meds or anything like that, what else are you taking with it? Any occupants interested in the occult? Anyone use a Ouija board? Or interested in seances, psychics, or spells? And if so, have they done anything in the home? Ouija boards. Some people ain't going to like this, but you know what? A Ouija board, used properly, is nothing more than a tool of communication. And we talked about this yesterday in the actual class. It's really unfortunate that a toy company makes the Ouija board because any child can go out and get one. Now, it's a tool. The difference between a Ouija board and a tarot deck, however, is the Ouija board brings in the bottom dwellers. These are the spirits that are a lower vibration that are 10 to 1 either tricksters, mischievous, or malevolent. They're there to cause harm. They don't like humans. A tarot deck, however, is a higher vibration of spirit, and they are messengers. That's why usually a tarot deck doing a tarot reading isn't going to bring in a haunting. It can, but usually not. Usually not. They're usually harmless. But a Ouija board, however, if it's not closed properly, if it's not if you're not using protection, you have a really good chance of bringing something in. That's why we ask: has a Ouija board been used? And any kind of if you okay, so off track for a second, but some things to look for with paranormal teams. If you call in a paranormal team and they charge money, hang up or tell them to leave. Ask them how many cases they've been on, how long they've been active. My opinion and my view: if a paranormal team is under 5 years, they're new. Because how many cases they've been on? Well, a lot of these teams that are under 5 years, they do maybe 3 cases a month. Some of them more. Don't get me wrong, it's not all inclusive. But and you add that up to a year, they haven't been out in the field very much, other than their hot spots. I don't count hot spots. Forest Moon, we do 5 cases a day, and that's globally. So you add those numbers, and based on the fact that we have over 8,000 members in the group, about 10% of them are clients or former clients that stayed in the group because they know they're going to be helped, and a lot of those people want to join the group. They want to join the team, and I have no problem with that. So, which occupants, if any, are currently seeking a mental health professional? That's important. What's your highest level degree of education? High school, college. Again, it kind of goes to the fact, the factor of what do you have to lose. Do any of the occupants have trouble sleeping? Is it a spirit causing that, or is it that you have sleep apnea? Or you having bad dreams? That's where you start dream journaling. Have you or anyone close had near-death experience? That's important because if you have an NDE, it can actually open a channel where you're going to be different when you come back from an NDE, based on what you've seen, during while you were technically dead, versus what's communicating with you now that you're back. Has anyone close to you passed away recently? Well, that goes without saying. That's are they trying to contact you? How would the phenomena be explained where you grew up? Well, that's going to show social, the society aspect. That's going to show, are you biased? If you were taught that everything's a demon, and you tell us it's a demon, well, is that why, or is it an actual demon? And we'll find that out through what we do. How would your parents explain what was happening? Again, that shows kind of the social aspect. What's the extent of your knowledge of the paranormal? That's going to show us if you were into the paranormal your entire life, you may or may not know what you're talking about based on that. So, just some things we look at. Have you or any occupant experimented with witchcraft or the occult? This is what we call dabbling. If you're a new pagan and you're conjuring or you're invoking, you might be bringing what you don't expect into the home or the business. And these are things, that's why we ask these things. And, that's one of our classes is going to be occult symbology. Because, and we talked about this yesterday as well, and I see this a lot. I see this a lot in teams that go in and they'll see a pentacle. A pentacle is a pentagram with a circle around it. It's a symbol of protection. But then you get these teams that go in, they see a pentacle, which was a symbol of protection for maybe a Wiccan ritual. Harmless. But, oh my God, it's a devil worshiper. No, it's really not. If you don't know what you're looking at, then you know what? Don't jump to those assumptions. Now, if I walk in and I see an inverted pentagram and certain sigils, depending what those sigils are, I'm pulling the team out and sending the astral team in. Astral team's going to be there anyway. But for the safety of the team, if they were doing a conjuring, we're not going to deal with it based on what the symbols are. So I think any paranormal team that's worth a damn needs to have some sort of occult symbology training. So moving along. This is where we get to give us a description of each of the events that you or anyone else in the home has experienced in your home. Smells, footsteps, that kind of thing. And then we go back to who has witnessed these events, and especially if they haven't lived in the home or if they're new. Have there been any explained odors? That goes with perfumes, flowers, excrement, garbage, things we look at. What unexplained sounds have you heard by anyone else in the home? Footsteps, knocks, or bangs? Please state what sound you've heard by whom. Has anyone heard voices? whispering, yelling, crying, or speaking? Has there been any movement of objects? That's where you get into the poltergeist. Has there been any unexplained hot or cold spots? Any personal attacks? So occupant observations, part 4, when and what was the first occurrence of any phenomenon? How long did it last? What was the initial reaction? Was it fear? Were you laughing? That kind of thing. Who was the first to witness the phenomenon? Or was it the cat? Is there a room in the house that's got the most activity and your animals won't go into it? Or your children are suddenly terrified by it? Those are things that are important. So what time of day was the first occurrence of the phenomena? That's where you start, picking things apart. On that day, when the thing started, did you bring something new into the home? That's when you start looking at patterns too. If phenomena starts happening the same time of, the same day of the month, every month, start looking at anniversary dates. That date is obviously important for a reason. And so, getting back to spirits for a second, there's different hauntings. Some are called residual, and these are like a record player. So if you have, and I used a couple examples yesterday, and I can't remember what state still, but there's a train crossing or railroad tracks, and if you park your car there, you will feel, and you'll hear giggling, but you'll feel your car being pushed off the tracks because there had been a disaster where a school bus was hit, and the children are still stuck there, and they will push cars off that stop on the tracks. Now, that can be residual or that can be actual spirits stuck. Residual is usually, you'll find that the spirits or the activity is unintelligent in that it does not react. You won't get an EVP. You might get a picture, but it's an unintelligent response because it's not really there. It's an energy imprint. And that's what's different between an actual spirit and an imprint. So what was the initial reaction of the phenomenon? Who was the first to witness it? Have you seen an increase? Has there been an increase in phenomena? What was the strangest incident experienced so far? What were the weather conditions? Again, same with dreams. Weather conditions can affect paranormal phenomena. Time of day really doesn't, because, you hear all these teams, oh, we got to do a nighttime investigation. Why? Spirits around you all the time. There's no, it doesn't matter if it's nighttime. Okay, so if you have night vision cameras and things like that, whatever. But time of day, nighttime, that doesn't affect a damn thing. What is the most frightening incident that you've experienced so far? And what do you and your occupants believe is happening? Pets and animals, part 5. Are there pets in the home business? If so, please state the type of animal. Some animals are more, psychic prone than others. We had a chow chow. Chow chows are awesome. They're highly sensitive. We had a chow chow that would follow spirits around. Actually had an alien incident where I had a metallic taste in my mouth, and at the same time, my chow went in the living room and sat down as if on command and was whimpering at the ceiling. Based on the fact that I had a metallic taste in my mouth, that was an alien incident. It lasted about 10 minutes. Additional questions: do you believe in ghosts, spirits, or entities? Again, that kind of shows if you're biased or if you know what you're looking at. Have you visited any haunted locations before, alone or in a group? And when and where was that? Again, did you bring something home? Because, you might have gone on a ghost hunt with a supposed reputed team, and they didn't tell you about protection or the threat of a possible attachment or something following you home. And so you thought, oh, it's just a harmless ghost walk. Not necessarily. So I'm not going to cover part 8, that's UFO and alien abduction, because it's actually one of my slides here. But that is how extensive our pre-investigative questionnaire is. And it's extensive for a reason, because it gives us a lot more to go on. As far as, the astral team is regardless going to see what it is or what it is not. So things to look at in investigation. Pre-investigative questionnaire was the first. History of the location is second. Past disasters and deaths. The time has started. Anything new brought into the home. Remodeling in the home. Landscaping. Was there any landscaping done recently? And then the activity started. That can piss off fairies or elementals. They don't like trees getting cut down. They don't like, depending on the area of your property, they don't always like you messing with tearing up the grass, tearing up this, tearing up the flowers, whatever. So what we look for in investigation, we send in the medium, we send in the astral team. We follow it up with EMF, EVP, pics or video, whichever. And then we compare notes, and then we clear it. That's the format. We'll get into our actual, the QRT side of it, quick response side of it. So we look at religious belief, paranormal belief, occult practice. Any tribal activity in the past. Did the activity start before you moved in, or did something follow you from another location? Did you buy something, furniture that had an attachment? Remodeling. Next slide. So dangers of the paranormal. This is what a lot of people don't talk about. There are a lot of dangers of the paranormal. First and foremost, obviously, slips and trips. You're going to old locations. You're going into wore-out houses, that kind of thing. They're always going to be a threat. Black mold, environmental hazards, monoxide levels. We walk into a location, we find black mold. I'm pulling the team out. We're putting masks on, and we're letting the client know we've got black mold. Get your county health department in to handle it. They're investigating. Based on what we do, psychiatric or criminal elements can be an issue. Getting back to slips and trips, to alleviate that, proper footwear and be aware of the hazards. So what our team is going to eventually do, if we get the funding and everyone's going to buy their own, but fire department boots. Fire department boots actually have a steel stripping inside on the bottom. So you step on nails, the nails are going to break. They're not going to go through your boot. Black mold, environmental hazards, observation, wear a mask, alert the client. Monoxide levels, you call your fire department. But we are going to get a monoxide detector when we go into locations. Psychiatric criminal elements, you never know whose house you're going to. You don't know what to expect. Background awareness of the client is important. And having law enforcement on hand can be important, depending on the severity of the situation. That falls in line with domestic violence and drug issues. Now, domestic violence and any kind of violent or drug issues can actually bring in negative elements. They can bring in demons. They can bring in malevolent entities, negative spirits. Negativity draws negativity. Lower vibrations draw negativity. Occult activity, open portals of conjuring to be aware of. Watch for symbols. Watch for Ouija boards. Things like that. Now, what I monitor the team for is nausea, headache, dizziness, and mood swings. These are all, they can be caused by black mold. They can be caused by high EMF readings, high monoxide readings, or spirit attachment. These are also signs of spirit attachment, or negative entity attachment. but along with that comes physical pain in the site. What the team carries, we have a trauma kit available on the team. And as far as the physical team, I have a medical paper on each one. Basically, what to look for if they have a high blood pressure, if they if they take medication, and they need to be kept an eye on. Now with UFOs, radiation at landing sites, these are things we watch for. Or you never know, being abducted, but probably won't happen. We'll get to that. Asbestos in buildings. Is the building old and is there asbestos in it? Things we watch for. So, fourth moon protocol. So generally speaking, and it works differently whether it's boots on ground or whether it's just a global case where I send the astral team in. Either way, I get a phone call, I get an email, I get a Facebook message, or I get tagged in a paranormal issue in another group. Those are usually the four ways that I get contacted. First thing I do is make contact with a client. I kind of do an assessment. Is it spirit or haunting related? Is it abduction related? Or was it a Bigfoot sighting? Then I kind of make an assessment and a determination how to approach it. At that time, I contact the astral team first and foremost, whether it's boots on ground or just an astral case. I give them a heads up. I get them in contact with a client because now everyone in astral works differently. Some need a picture. But once they see a picture, bam, they're gone. Some of them need to talk to the client. They make that energy connection, bam, they're gone. So based on what it is, if it's a boots on ground case, I'm notifying astral, telling them the severity of it or not, or if it's just a routine case. Then I'm going to activate the phone roster. And based on location, if it's in, say, Whatcom County, I'll contact our Whatcom people and we'll set up a rally point, whether it's an AM, PM, close to the spot. We'll get to the rally point, we'll convoy in. Before we go, we'll do an equipment check, protection confirmed, make sure everyone's shielded, grounded, has their whatever stones they're going to use, whatever their protection method is. And going back, so the astral team contacted for initial review. We're doing an equipment walkthrough. We're getting there. Hold on, I'm jumping ahead. So we do an equipment check. We make sure everyone's shielded, protected in whatever way. Because again, everyone, we're pagan at the core, but it's also a diverse religious background. Everyone's got their own religion, and so you use whatever you're comfortable with. If you have a necklace with a cross and you feel your faith and your belief is enough to protect you, then by all means, that's what you use. So we get to site, I make physical contact with the client, get the pre-investigative form filled out, and we start the interview process. We get permission, we get all the forms signed from the client, verifying they want the investigation. Give permission for us to go in. Medium does her walkthrough. She comes back, gives me an assessment of what she felt. Then I'll send Corey in with the EMF meter. We'll do an equipment walkthrough. Same time, I'm still in contact with Bonnier, Donna, or Tony from the astral team and what they see. They see a different perspective. Results of the tech, astral team, and the medium are evaluated. We come up with an assessment plan, and then we clear it. Whether it's the astral team removing a malevolent entity or crossing over the spirit, whether it's our medium crossing over the spirit, either way. Then we will do a medium walkthrough again, make sure everything's gone. We'll do a final tech check, which is a final EMF reading. Make sure there's nothing talking through EVP. And then we sit down with the client, let them know what it was, possibly how they picked it up, and we talk about the education side. You don't use the Ouija board no more. Here's some, let's get some sage. Let's do a good shielding of your home, a good shielding of you, and cleanse your home. And I don't like smudging. I like having the client do the smudging. That puts the power of their home back into their hands. So once that's complete, the client's happy. They have our card. They know how to get a hold of us because we always have an open door policy with all clients. That if they have any more issues, give us a call. Now we do a team check, equipment inventory, make sure everyone feels good, everything is fine, no nausea, no attachments, nothing's coming back with us. We go back to the rally point. We discuss the case, discuss how it could improve, and we drink coffee. That's what we do. Okay, next slide is actually, we're going to talk about proper home cleansing. So sage, white sage bundles is what we use. And we use, locally, we get all of our supplies from the Mortar and Pestle Apothecary run by Donna Franklin, who is on our team, and she has her own store. So we buy all of our supplies from her, keeps her in business. And she is in downtown Mount Vernon for those that are local. And if you need anything, she orders it and usually has most of what we need on stock. So make sure you check her out. So you open your doors and windows. Now spirits, yes, they can go through walls. They can go through windows. But you open your doors and windows so they have an easy access point to get the hell out of your home. And there's a lot of debate. Do you go counterclockwise? Do you go clockwise? Personally, you start in the center of the room. You go to each corner. You smudge your home. You light your smudge stick, obviously, and you get a good smoke going. Now, there was a study done on sage, and sage has been used in rituals and in cleansing with Native Americans for hundreds of years. And there's a reason for that. Sage takes the negative molecules and converts them to positive. And so that brings positivity into your home and dispels the negativity. As you're smudging, based on whatever your religious preference is, you say a blessing on your home as you're going. You tell anything unwanted that it's not welcome there. And you cleanse your home. And, about 99% of the time, I will give the client a sage bundle and tell them how to do it, and they can do it. Because it, like I said earlier, it puts the power of the home, or puts the control back into their hands. Now, what many people forget is your drains. Put some salt in your drains. And the question came up, table salt? No, sea salt. Sea salt's the best one. Table salt can work, but get sea salt. And put a little bit of sea salt down all your drains. I would wash your mirrors with a salt water solution. If you have carpets, throw some salt down the carpets, vacuum it up. If you have wood floors, I'd mop your wood floors with a salt solution. Religion doesn't always work. Now, when you die, if you're stuck, if you haven't passed over, you're the same person. If you're an asshole in life, you're going to be an asshole in death. If you're an atheist and you died, you're still an atheist. So if you bring in a Catholic priest, you're only going to escalate the situation because I'm sorry, but a spirit's not going to respond to a religion that they're not a part of. It works that way. We've had cases where they had a Catholic priest come in, they had an evangelist come in, they had a Native American shaman come in, didn't do anything. We had to go in and actually force the spirit over. We don't like doing that. And oftentimes they'll use spirit guides to pass them over. Or they'll have, sometimes you'll have family members that'll come back across and walk their family members over. And that's cool. I like it when that happens. It's more comfortable. Once you're done smudging, burn some white candles. Now, with dispelling negativity, black candles dispel negativity. Black stones dispel negativity. And all this is going to be talked about in the protection class next month, a lot more in depth. But what I carry, and you can use Snowflake Obsidian or Jet, but I carry black tourmaline. It's a very strong protective stone, and it's good for all aspects of protection. Rosemary. Rosemary, malevolent entities hate rosemary. If you plant rosemary outside your home, it's a good ward to keep negative elements away. So if you're looking at the PowerPoint, you'll see some pictures. The middle picture is actually elementals leaving a ritual that we did in Iraq. And all 4 elements showed themselves leaving. This is not a bad camera. This is not, because I took pictures of the candles normal, and they were fine. These did not show themselves until I said goodbye to the elements, and they showed themselves leaving. All 4 of them. This is only 2 of the pictures, 2 of the elements. If you look to the left, you'll see a picture of a gravestone, and if you look close, you'll see a blue orb. I call that a fairy orb, because I do believe that was a fairy. Okay, UFOs. UFOs have been seen since the beginning of time. There's been cave paintings that were in France. There were cave paintings here in South Dakota in America of, Native Americans did. They are definitive, and there's pictures. They are definitive UFOs. Hands down. They're actually also cave paintings of aliens. Columbus wrote about UFO sightings he saw, crossing over the ocean in his diaries. Nazca Plains. So on the next slide, you're going to see a cave painting on the left. You're going to see the UFO flap in the 1950s over the White House. That was on radar. That was photos. That was a UFO flap, hands down. Nazca Plains, the bottom right picture is there are 5 different diagrams still in existence in Nazca that were only seen from above. If you look at it from above, you'd see them. They didn't have airplanes. They didn't have anything in the air back then when those were made. Roswell crashed in 1947. 1940s is a very hot year for UFOs. That's when Arnold Palmer had his UFO sighting over Mount Rainier. The Maury Island incident in Tacoma, in the Bay. A lot of activity. Crop circles. There's a lot of different theories about what they are. They're actual, in my opinion, they are, and the opinion of R. Keith Andrews, who is our alien race specialist. They're basically calling cards and messages for other races. Animal mutilations were documented back in the 1970s. You want references for an awesome author, Linda Moulton Howe. Excellent author for animal mutilations. Get Alien Harvest. Also, volume 1 and 2 of Illusion of Reality. Excellent books. So the Project Blue Book started in 1947 and 1969. It was closed, supposedly, run by the U.S. Air Force. That was their official UFO investigation by the government. Out of all of them, they claimed only 12% were unidentified. Well, you know what? That's 12. That's 12%. That's a high number of unidentifieds. So come on now. So Philadelphia experiment, 1955. That was an attempt at time travel using a battleship, an aircraft carrier, I think it was, and it appeared by witnesses in Norfolk, Virginia. And when it came back, everyone was dead and pretty much mutilated. So Area 51, everyone knows that's top secret UFO base, basically what S4 is named after. Yeah, Bob Lazar that came out of Area 51 in the 1980s said he was a scientist that worked there that was working on reverse engineering the UFOs that were captured, that had crashed, that were reconstructed. He also talked about Element 116 before it was even mentioned about Element 116 being discovered. Tells me he's got a lot of credence, and you know what? As much instead of killing him, they tore apart his credibility, and so he never existed. Yet he's still in phone books for Area 51 for Nevada. So you can try to dispel him all you want. Um, the man, to me, has credibility. Philip Schneider, killed by the government, uh, worked in Dulce, New Mexico. He was a geologist. Tested the soil for the government before they built, underground bases. Now, when he went, and I believe it was in Dulce, it was in New Mexico somewhere, at the Four Corners, he was testing the soil, and it opened up an underground base that was already there, and there were already aliens there. And, he came out and started doing lectures about his experiences, and he was found, from what they said, committed suicide using IV tubing. That doesn't work. So he was killed. So 1940s, you've got the Foo Fighters, World War II. These were basically balls of light that were following our aircraft, and they tried to blame the Germans. The Germans were blaming the Americans. Both sides didn't know what it was. And yeah, they were another form of UFO sighting. So the 1942 Battle of LA, they made a movie out of it. That was actually UFOs that were over the coast of California. The military fired on them, and nothing happened. They weren't destroyed. 1947 UFO crash over White Sands, New Mexico. 1950, a very famous UFO photo, over McMinnville, Oregon. Woman came out of her house, and there was a UFO over their barn. Took a picture of it, and back then you couldn't really fake photos like you can today. Back in the 1950s, if it was on a picture, it wasn't photoshopped, it wasn't CGI, it was pretty valid. 1954, and the question comes up with abduction. Why isn't there disclosure? Well, in 1954, Eisenhower is said to have met with aliens at Holloman Air Force Base. He met them. He made an agreement. They signed a contract. They could abduct a certain number of humans in exchange for technology. Now you got cell phones. The internet had computers had a big escalation of technology. So yeah, not taking away from the intelligence of humans. I understand there's a lot of geniuses that create technology all the time. But when you're looking at the jump in technology we had in a short time span, some of the technology they got from the aliens was fiber optics, the U-2 spy plane, the stealth bomber. Look at our TVs today. Look at our computers. Look at our internet. There's a lot of things that just, yeah. So that's where, and the reason the government can't come out and say yes, they're aliens, is, well, look at all the people that are being abducted, and they find out definitively from the government that Eisenhower made this contract. You know how many lawsuits there's going to be? You know how stupid the government's going to look when it comes out that yes, Eisenhower did make a contract, and well, we can't stop the aliens now, and they're still abducting people. So there's not going to be any disclosure. There's been numerous crashes, UFO crashes in the last 100 years. We're actually doing an S4 show in December about it. I believe December 2nd. I'll get into that here shortly. But 1965, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, UFO crash. You had Roswell 47. You had White Sands, New Mexico 47. You had another crash in Mexico in 1947. You had the Kingman, Arizona. There was a UFO crash. You had a crash in Virginia, Brazil. You had a UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. I already said that. Russia. You had basically a Roswell of Russia, where they actually got alien bodies and whatnot. So UFOs have been witnessed by law enforcement, airline pilots, military. In New York, Hudson Valley case, there was a woman that was actually witnessed being taken out of a UFO, and it was witnessed by a UN official that was driving at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning across the Brooklyn Bridge. So you talk about wanting evidence. You've got enough evidence. There's enough evidence in the paranormal field that if it was a criminal, and this is a quote by Dave Scott, but if there was a criminal case, there would be enough evidence to convict the criminal based on UFO. So if you look at the pictures, I already went over them, the UFO flap over the White House. So let's talk alien abduction. So some of the signs, and I'm not going to go into abduction a whole lot because we've covered that in the last show. UFO sighting is usually the first indicator. Missing time, scoop marks, bruises and marks, implants, false pregnancy with missing fetus, nosebleeds at night, electrical anomalies, dreams of craft, fear of owls or deer, big eyes. UFO sighting is often the precursor of it. Missing time. Now that can actually be a psychiatric issue. That can be fainting. That can be, the you look at a few of the signs and you fit them. Doesn't mean you're an abductee necessarily. You got to look at psychiatric. You got to look at medical. Scoop marks. Do you get bruising because you've got anemia? You're a bleeder, that kind of thing. Scoop marks. They look like you took a little tiny spoon and you scooped the skin. It's called a scoop mark. Implants. It used to be back in the 90s, and it still is somewhat today, in the nasal cavity. They also put implants in the arms. Now, there's 16 races that are known to abduct, and that's documented. There's more than 16 that are abducting. Some of them for science. Some of them for the hybrid program. Some of them for a social experimentation. They'll take an abductee for the social side, and they'll show them pictures or video of the apocalypse, of disasters, just to watch their emotional reaction. The Greys are well known for the hybrid program. If you want an excellent book, Dr. David Jacobs, Secret Life of Alien Abduction, excellent book. Tells you everything you need to know. Nosebleeds at night. Now, what I look for is when you're sleeping, is there dry air? Do you have high blood pressure? There's different medical conditions that can cause nosebleeds. When we talk electrical anomalies, do you walk past? Do you walk at night and you walk past street lamps that go off on their own? Each one as you walk past it. That would be an example of electrical anomaly. Dreams of spacecraft. Write them down in your dream journal. Fear of owls or deer. Big eyes. We covered that a little bit earlier. It has to do with the screen masking, the memory masking. When you're being abducted, they will look like deer. They'll look like owls, but they can't hide their eyes. So some historical cases. Betty and Barney Hill back in the 60s, abducted. They're the ones that drew the Zeta Reticuli star map 2 to 3 years before it was even discovered. Shows a lot of credence. How would she know what the Zeta Reticuli star system looked like? Travis Walton, 1975, Fire in the Sky movie. Now, what happened? He was excited. He saw a UFO. He ran up to it. They shot the tractor beam unintentionally, killed him, and they took him up and brought him back to life. They fixed him. Then they returned him. That's the Travis Walton story. Fire in the Sky, completely different perspective, but he did come out with a new movie last year, and Peter Robbins was the director for it, and explained what really happened. The Villas Boas case in Brazil, 1957. The Dyatlov Pass Russia incident, 1959. Look these up. You can Google these and find all kinds of information about these cases. And this doesn't even scratch the surface. We'll actually be doing a UFO and abduction class in January, I believe. I'll go over the schedule here shortly. So 1960s, the Reed family abduction in Massachusetts. You got some pictures. Next slide. On the left is the Betty and Barney Hill. In the middle, that's the Zeta Reticuli star map. She actually drew a black and white diagram of it, but that's how it looks today. And was discovered 3 years after she drew it. And it was brought up through hypnosis. On the right, you'll see Travis Walton. Bigfoot. All right. Almost last slide. We're almost done here. So there's a lot of different theories about what Bigfoot is. These are my personal theories. Interdimensional. I believe he's interdimensional based on the fact that you can follow footprints and they disappear in the middle of an open field. Where's it? Well, he climbed up a tree. Really? What if there's no trees around? Where'd he go? There's been cases where he's been seen to shapeshift. You can't get a good photograph of him. A lot of blurry pictures. Native American lore, he was called the Hairy Man, and he was known as a guardian. Some people, and these theories came up yesterday in the class, is some people think he's a part of the fairy realm. I don't really buy into that one, not so much. I believe he's a guardian, hands down. I believe he's a watcher of the earth. There's been a couple different cases where people saw Bigfoot with a landed UFO. Not buying into that one so much. So for some investigators that have investigated Bigfoot for a while, you go to the same spot in the mountains all the time, day after day after day, to where eventually you earn his trust. And then you can start interacting with him. Gifting sites. So these are sites that you go up where you know it's a known hot spot for Bigfoot. You leave marbles. You leave matchbox cars. You leave shiny things. Hang CDs from a tree. And these are called gifting sites. And oftentimes Bigfoot will actually leave gifts back. Or in some cases, the matchbox car might have been moved. And like I said, he'll leave gifts back. Now, there have been cases where he can be territorial, and there have been cases where people had logs thrown through the car windows, had rocks thrown at them, things like that. Now, West Coast, Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot is known to be timid. He's known to stay hidden for the most part, and docile. Not friendly per se, but docile. You go to the southern states, you hear about Swamp Man. He's aggressive, attacks unprovoked, things of that nature. Are they the same beast, same creature? Maybe. I think they're cousins. Just my opinion again. So, next slide. Force Moon Paranormal's Voice. S4 airs every Saturday midnight. You can find us on Spreaker. If you're listening to this right now, this is the S4 site. The link for it is right there. You've got YouTube video where we have all of our shows go onto the YouTube channel, plus some. There's a lot of bonus features on YouTube. We're affiliated with Dave Scott. We're also on KTLK, the Fringe FM. The link to KTLK is there. And if you're in Upper Skagit, We are featured on Upper Skagit Radio, KSVU, on Irma Back Show. So events. So obviously we do training every second Sunday of the month, 2 p.m. at Annie's Pizza. November 12th is going to be paranormal protection, grounding, shielding, stones and herbs to use. No training for December. It's holidays. You can hear my rooster in the background. I know. January 14th, Annie's Pizza, UFOs and alien abduction. February 11th, we're doing Bigfoot and cryptids. March 11th, we're doing occult symbology. April 8th, we're doing evidence collection. And there's a lot more training coming. We're doing wilderness survival and first aid. We're doing psychology and the paranormal. We're doing passing over spirits. We'll be doing law enforcement in the paranormal, government regulation and laws in the paranormal. And I think that about wraps it up. Now, if you need to contact me, obviously, most of you are probably already in the Forest Moon Paranormal group. My phone number is 360-840-7674 for emergencies. My email is medicineeagle, MEDICYNE_eagle @yahoo.com. And my Twitter is @Warfighter of Washington, or actually @Warfighter of WA. So that wraps it up. Thank you for listening. Any issues, any questions, by all means, get a hold of me. And before I leave, I'm actually going to go over the S4 schedule with you as well. Okay, for S4, so the way I've got it set up, and Corey runs the studio for us, but we only really discuss topics on the first and second Saturdays. The third Saturday is roundtable. The fourth Saturday, we actually have the Forest Moon Paranormal team come on and talk, and we discuss whatever's in the paranormal going on for that month, and take questions. Obviously, every Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time, we're on air live. We have a live chat room, and we're global, and I love it. So next Saturday, we're doing cryptids with Butch Wachowski. The 21st is going to be S4 Roundtable. The 28th will be the Forest Moon Paranormal team. For November, we're doing Spirits with Sarah Camp, who's our team medium. 11 November, we're doing a Veterans Day show. 18 November is the S4 Roundtable. 25 November is S4 with the Forest Moon Paranormal team. 2 December, UFO crashes and conspiracies. 9 December, the Spirits of Christmas. I'm going to love that show. 16 December, we're back to the S4 Roundtable. 23 December, we're up in the air to 23 December. It's basically the night before Christmas Eve. So we're either going to do a replay show, or what we do occasionally, very rarely, we'll do a pre-recorded show and throw it up. Because as long as there's a show playing at midnight, KTLK The Fringe picks it up. And then we're airing on KTLK The Fringe FM as well. So 30 December, we're back to S4 with the Forest Moon Paranormal team. And then 6 January 2018, don't miss out. S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal plans for 2018. We'll talk Paracon, training, ideas and suggestions for the new year. Coming into a new year is always great. And, before I close, I want to discuss, why is training important? Military, we train. I covered that, and I understand that, but we need a strong, true paranormal presence for clients. And I say that because, to be honest with you, 80% of the teams out there are a joke. They don't do it for the right reason. They really don't give a damn about clients and what they go through. And that needs to change. I would say a fringe group probably lasts maybe a year or two and they kind of peter out. But you got so many in this field for the wrong reason that, and I can't emphasize that enough, how many clients I've had call in tears and terrified And they had a paranormal team come through. And they got their really cool EVP and their awesome looking picture and said, thanks, bye. Well, what about the spirit? What about the client? You're not going to help them? You're not going to fix the problem? They disgust me. Because now you've done three things. You've verified that there's a presence there and left. You didn't get help for the client. You just left. And there's a lot of teams that do that. They don't give a shit about whether that client's safe. And a lot of times, because they see it done on TV, they'll sit there and poke and prod and irritate the spirit even more. And then they leave. So now this person, this client has, been verified that they do have an issue and left high and dry. And now they're stuck with an even more pissed off spirit because they've been, poked and prodded. And that's usually why we're an emergency response team, because that's usually when we get the phone call. And before I close, too, we're going to go over the code of conduct. And violations of our code of conduct, and any team that is worth a damn has a code of conduct. That's ethics. So personal conduct, the use of intoxicants is strictly prohibited on investigations. This includes the use of prescription drugs, as well as recreational drugs, and alcohol that may impair your judgment or behavior. Any member found to be involved in an investigation while under the influence will be dismissed from the team immediately. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. If you're on, because this came up, if you're on medication, that doesn't bother me. As long as it doesn't affect you, your judgment, it doesn't affect you, as long as it doesn't put you and the team at risk. If you smoke pot, I don't care. You smoke pot, you come to a case smelling like weed, I do care. You're gone. Bye. You don't ever go to a client's house smelling like weed. That's unprofessional. If you're under the influence of weed, it can open you up to an attachment. It can make the team vulnerable as a whole. And it's blatantly disrespectful. You don't go to a stranger's house smelling like weed. Not even a little bit. Smell like alcohol. If you're sick, I have no problem with you saying, look, I just took some NyQuil. I'm sick. Can't make it. Not a problem. I can respect you for that. If you're sick, you took some NyQuil or some, any other kind of cold medication, then by all means, stay home. There's to be no smoking of cigarettes during an investigation except predetermined locations. Now, and I covered this yesterday. I smoke. If the client smokes and they have a smoking area, I will go have no problem having a cigarette with the client. But you don't walk around smoking on their property. For one, again, it's unprofessional. For two, you have someone on the team taking pictures. That can affect your pictures. You see a smoky haze from someone smoking a cigarette off to the side. Oh my God, it's a spirit. No, actually, it's just cigarette smoke. So members are not to make or accept personal calls during an investigation. Cell phones may be used during an investigation only for official purposes, such as contacting other members of the team or using investigation-relevant applications. If you're using EMF meter applications with paranormal tools on your cell phone, understandable. You have kids, you need to take an emergency phone call, understandable. But go outside, go off to the side. Don't stand there and talk to your friends while we're doing an investigation. All right, weapons are prohibited on investigations unless previously approved by the team as the lead investigator. All right, I'm more or less addressing firearms on that one. And like I said earlier in the presentation, we don't know what we're going to walk into. If you walk into a domestic violence situation, sure, a gun would be great, but we're not going to be held liable for that. If you have a knife, let me know first, but weapons are prohibited. Force Moon Paranormal is a team of diversity and recognizes that different investigators have varying religious and spiritual beliefs and practices. Before participating in an investigation, each investigator is asked to take a moment to use their preferred method of self-protection to avoid attachments from the investigation site. If you're a Christian, for example, pray, wear your cross, whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you feel protected. Like I said in the protocol, we check for attachments before we leave. As the team removes them, that's not a problem. The safety of investigators is of great importance. More than anything, trust your instincts and exercise common sense. If it isn't safe, don't do it. Investigations and team conduct. The team leader will secure permission in writing from the owner of the property before any team member will enter the property or begin an investigation. How many times have you seen, you don't go on private property without permission? And generally speaking, if we roll onto site, we get out, the client's already outside. They see us pull up, they're probably outside. So that's generally not an issue. I'll walk up, we'll introduce ourselves, and I start the application and the interview process. And first and foremost, beforehand, secure permission to send our medium and our tech in to start the investigation. And it goes from there. If an investigation takes place on public or government-owned property, the team leader will notify local law enforcement of the team's presence. And, you hear cases where, well, I was just investigating the cemetery. Well, you know what? If it's after dark, why are you in the cemetery to begin with? And law enforcement is going to react and going to respond. And that just makes the paranormal field look bad. It does. Client confidentiality is of utmost importance. Cases are not to be discussed outside of the team. No team member will include information about a case in a publication in print, voice, digital, or any other form without express written consent from the client. That goes without saying. Again, we have 8,400 people in Force Moon Paranormal, 10% of those being former clients. If they want to talk about their experience, that's on them, by all means. But we'll never mention names, locations, that kind of thing in anything we do. We talk about cases, yes, in general. We had a demon over here. We had a fairy over there, whatever the case. But we never mention client names or locations. So to avoid confusion, most, if not all, communication with the client will be through the team lead. The team leader will maintain an open line of communication with the client to ensure the client's satisfaction with the handling of the case, as well as to maintain availability should a problem reoccur after the close of the investigation. And you'll find in the Force Moon Paranormal group, if we have a case, someone comes in asking for help, I will tag the team and I will turn off commenting. I do that for a reason. I do that, one, so that the client is not overwhelmed and bombarded by 11 billion questions by individuals that are not even on the not even a part of the team. I also do that so they don't get all kinds of unsolicited advice or recommendations on what they need to do, because frankly, there's a whole lot of theories out there. We know our theories. We know what works for us and what does not work for us. So to keep, again, confusion, I turn off commenting. All members of the team are to behave in a professional manner, treat the client as well as any spirits or entities present with respect and dignity. We respect spirits as well as the clients. You don't see that too often. A lot of teams do, don't get me wrong. But again, that's important to us. Within the paranormal community at large, sometimes there can be disagreements between members of different groups. In order to prevent Force Moon Paranormal from contributing to the problem, team members are asked to refrain from engaging in arguments with those from other groups and to refer any conflict to the team lead. You see that all the time. You know what? We don't play the drama game, and I don't even talk to the teams that we have a problem with, because frankly, I don't care for them. And I don't say names. If the shoe fits, wear it. That's the bottom line. And hopefully you change your tactics, you change what you do, or get out of the field. And you're not going to get out of the field. So anyway, any case that involves a child, herein defined as any person under the age of 18, a parent must be present at any time a team member discusses the investigation with the child. That goes without saying. That protects us as well as the client and the child. And usually we walk in teams of 2, we investigate in teams of 2, and there's always a witness that way. Any evidence collected for further scientific analysis should be carefully collected with gloves, bagged and labeled with detailed information to be shipped to the appropriate scientific facility, which for us is Markham. Teams and team members are never to charge for services. If you're affiliated with Forest Moon Paranormal, you do not charge. So team conduct in the paranormal. All team members are to treat spirits, cryptids, and other paranormal beings with respect and dignity. In cases involving cryptids, team members will not harm the cryptid except in cases where their own or others' lives are in imminent danger. Team members are not to deliberately provoke or antagonize spirits or entities. That goes without saying. What's seen on TV, we do not do. Forest Moon Paranormal exists to serve not only the client, but also the spirits involved as well. Whenever possible, teams are to be respectfully help spirits to move on or find a way for the spirit to exist peacefully with the client. And we covered all that today. Forest Moon Paranormal recognizes the importance of utilizing mediums and others with psychic abilities in the field. However, whenever possible, team members are to verify as much information as possible using mundane means such as historical records and equipment readings. And you know what? We do that all the time. We always validate using medium, the astral team, and tech. And that makes for a balanced investigation. Makes for a balanced entity crossing, spirit crossing, alien abduction, stop, cease, whatever. So that is your first training. The mandatory training for this team is this training today, and next month, November 12th, is paranormal protection. We're going to cover stones, herbs that we use for protection, grounding and shielding, and protection in general. So on that note, folks, I hope you enjoyed the training. Any questions, contact me directly, and have a great day.